Jai Sri Jagannath. Welcome to one and all present here. By the way, today in this class, we are supposed to have a discussion regarding one of the fundamental chapters in your syllabus that is most important. We can say that it is an indispensable part of human civilization, that is communication. So very important, very imperative and very essential. You must learn in this series of communication process what are the things coming. I'll discuss, particularly in this class, I'll discuss about the beginning, the introduction, then I'll discuss about the historical development of communication and process of communication, that is nature and characteristics of communication, and finally the importance of communication in this class. We are supposed to have discussion. So let's come to the beginning first. Since the human civilization has started, since the time immemorial, you can say, since the ancient times, the survival of the earth, the human beings started. From that time, communication is there. That means it's the beginning. So the time started in this earth from the time of pre-existence and existence of human beings, the communication started. And still today, that is in the civilized, in the digitalized world, in the global world, communication is enhancing. So it is the part and parcel. Had there been no communication, no progress would have been possible. So communication is of course required not only for survival, but also for progress of our lives. So it may be in education sector, it may be in scientific sectors, technological world, corporate world, wherever you go, communication is an indispensable part. So it is the continuous part of human life. Let's exactly know how it is historically developed. In the ancient times, communication was of course there, but it was limited. It was primitive. It was not advanced. It was not structured in a structured manner. It was mostly unstructured, restricted to small groups. The vocabulary that you are using, that was limited, and it was mostly non-verbal. Mostly it is done through caves, paintings, sounds and cries, signals, gestural and postural movements, our body movements, our drum beats, sound systems, and different signals, different symbols we are using. Because the technology was not so advanced, mostly the primitive people in the restricted society, they are expressing themselves through their body movements, gestures and postures. And some cave paintings are there also, because printing was not developed. But by the way, in the last 20 years, our world has been globalized. Our technology has been advanced. Our science is in the peak stage. So everything is expanding. So in the similar fashion, communication has been developed. It has been widened. Its scope has been widened. That means the vocabulary has been unlimited, expanded. In that time, the limited vocabulary we are using, but in this time, vocabulary has been expanded due to digitalization and globalization. Vocabulary has been widened, and the communication that we are doing, it is becoming structured, and it is mostly instantaneous. It has been dynamic. It has been continuous. It has been it has been mostly dynamic process because everything has been developed, and the printing at that time the communication was mostly in the non-verbal modes, but this time it is verbally in the verbal modes because printing materials are there, the printing communication, the mass media communication, and in the virtual mode communication is happening. So mostly it has been advanced. So what exactly we can mark between the ancient times and this time? That time the communication was existing, but that was not structured, and that is for survival mode. What is survival mode? In one sentence, I can sum up the difference of communication in ancient times and modern times. That is survival mode, and this is progressive mode. Survival mode means, suppose I am communicating with my family members, with my society, just for survival. That means I have no purpose in my mind. Just I am communicating to fulfill my needs and desires. But progressive mode means there is a purpose, there is a process, there is advancement. Suppose I am teaching here. It's not for survival mode. My communication is just I am teaching now. It's not for survival mode. It is progressive mode, because I have a purpose in my mind, and I have the purpose that students in this class, they are supposed to have a completion what they are supposed to learn in this particular class. That purpose is to be fulfilled. I have desired feedback from you. Whatever I have shared with you, that feedback I must get. So this is a process. So ancient communication was for survival mode, and modern communication, that is the digitalized communication, the globalized communication, is in the progressive mode. So this is the historical advancement of communication. Let's come to know what exactly communication is. That is most important. First of all, we must know the etymological meaning, that is the derivational meaning. Etymological meaning means the শব্দটির ব্যুৎপত্তি কিপরি হয়েছে। তো শব্দর ব্যুৎপত্তি Latin শব্দ হয়েছে। Communication word Latin শব্দ, it has been derived from the Latin word that is communis and communicare. Communis and communicare, which means sharing or to make something common. So the most important word I have mentioned here, sharing. So sharing is there. That means communication means sharing. What you are sharing? Sharing your feelings, sharing your attitudes, sharing your emotions, sharing your thoughts, sharing your ideas with others. That is communication. Here I am sharing my feelings, my ideas, my attitudes with you students. So the two things, in the communication, mostly two-way. The person who is sending the communication and the person who are receiving the communication. Sender must be there and receiver must be there. So let us arrive at a definition. I can say that communication is a process of sharing the ideas, knowledge, skills, attitudes, informations that is existing in our brain that we are supposed to express before others. So that is communication. This is the meaning of communication you must know. In simpler words, I can say that in communication, a sender must be there, a receiver must be there, and between the sender and the receiver, the process continues. This is what communication is. Let us have a brief discussion about its nature and characteristics. First of all, communication is a process. Communication is a process. My dear students, everything, whatever we are doing in our day-to-day life situations, this is having a process. Here I am teaching you. This is a process, because before coming to the class, I have collected the materials, I have seen your syllabus, and I go through a proper planning. Now I am executing my planning. Then after the class is over, I'll take the feedback, whatever you have understood. So this is a process. Whatever happens in this world, that happens to the process. Similarly, communication is also a process. Had there been no process, whatever we are desiring, that is meaningless. So communication always should be purposive and meaningful, isn't it? Then the second characteristic is communication is a two-way process. It is a process and it is a two-way process, because whatever I am communicating, I am not communicating myself. I am communicating with others. So senders must be there, receivers must be there. Unless and until I'll talk to myself continuously, other than that I'll be bad. So it's a process, it's a two-way process, isn't it? The audience must be there and the concerned person who is communicating, he must be there, isn't it? So it's a two-way process. Then, well, It may be verbal, it may be non-verbal. Communication is mostly verbal. Non-verbal, I have already told you, in the ancient times, the communication has not been advanced, vocabulary has not been developed up to the optimal point. So, in that time, we are adapting the non-verbal modes. But in the digitalized world, printing, communication press, and different mass medias have developed, so communication has been advanced. It is mostly in verbal mode. So communication is verbal as well as non-verbal. Sometimes in the advancing world, that doesn't mean that we are ignoring the non-verbal modes. Sometimes non-verbal modes is desired depending upon the situation and the context. Let us come to another point. Communication is a continuous process. It's a process, it's a two-way process, it's a continuous process. Because in every time, starting from our morning up to going to the bed, wherever we go into the corporate sector or your business sector or professional sector or formal setup, so we are doing the continuous process of communications. We cannot remain silent, aloof. We have to communicate ourselves. So it's a continuous process. And the most important nature about communication is that communication is a dynamic process. It's a process, it's a two-way process, it's a continuous process, and it is dynamic process. Why the word dynamism is used here? Let us understand, let us make it more clear. Dynamism is used here. We must know because communication changes to the time and situation, to the context. Isn't it? Suppose I'm giving an example. Suppose I'm communicating with my family members. This is a non-formal context. I can use any set of words. So that is not, I'm not using the words planningly. That is a non-verbal setup. This is not formal communication. But I'm communicating in an aristocratic group, in an elite group, in a civilized group. So my communication will be different. In different areas, we are facing different situations, different peoples, so our communication is changed accordingly. If I am dealing with the educated mass, my communication must be structured vocabulary, it must be in a proper fashioned manner. If I am using it with an uneducated mass, so that my communication will be something different. So in different situations, in different perspectives, in different setups, we are changing our communication styles. So that's why it is called communication is dynamic process. So now till I have discussed about the nature and characteristics of communication. I have discussed in details. Let us come to the next point that I have told you earlier. That is importance of communication, significance. जहाँ हम ओडिया रे कहो गुरुत्व. So गुरुत्व टा भी केमिति जानिबा. तो गोटे कथा पिला माने मन रखो. जेतेबेले गोटे जिंसर absence से आमे किछि difference feel करूछि. When the absence of a thing makes difference in our lives, that means it is important. If the absence doesn't make any difference, then it is not important. Suppose I love somebody, his absence, that means his presence makes something different. Suppose I have no carings for a person, his absence doesn't make any difference. That means importance is only there if in its absence we are feeling the difference. So similarly, in the absence of communication, there is a drastic difference in our lives. That means life is meaningless, it is futile, because we are not exposing ourselves, we are not, as I have told earlier, that communication is sharing. From the Latin word it has been derived, that is communis, it means share. So unless and until we are sharing our feelings, what shall we feel? My dear students, you can say, suppose you are aloof, you are alone, nobody is there to accompany with you. How would you feel? That means you will feel isolated. So without communication, the entire human civilization will feel isolated. That means it will be cut off from humanity. So communication is foremost important to share our feelings. It is not merely confined to talking. Some people conceive it as that communication is only talking. It's not merely talking. It's a process. It's a systematic process of encoding the information, of decoding the information, transmitting the information. It's a complex process. It is the fundamental human. It is the fundamental human activity. It is the fundamental connective tissue, you can say. It's the one of the important aspects of human relationships. So not only in our formal setups, in our informal setups, communication is as and when required. Without it, the life is meaningless, purposeless, and futile. So this is how the importance of communication. So in this class, we have a complete discussion about the introduction, about the historical advancement, development of communication. In that context, I have told you the communication in ancient times and in the modern times. In the ancient times, communication was in a survival mode. In the modern times, communication was in a progressive mode. Then after, I have discussed about the nature and characteristics of communication. That is, communication is a process, it's a two-way process, it's a continuous process, it's a dynamic process, and communication is in non-verbal and verbal mode as well. Then I have discussed about the importance of communication. So I hope I must be able to get some information, to get some clarity in this class. You must have understood, and according to your feedback, I'll design the instructions again. So by the way, whatever confusions or any doubts existing in your minds, you can share with me. That is your feedback. And in that context, I would like to mention one thing more, that feedback is an important part of communication. The person who is communicating, unless and until he gets the feedback, he gets the acknowledgement. Unless and until he gets the feedback and acknowledgement, communication is meaningless. So I hope for your feedback. In the next class we'll meet. So thank you. Jai Jagannath.